Taegukgi, The Brotherhood of War is a 2004 South Korean wartime action drama film starring Jang Dong-gun and Won Bin. It tells the story of two brothers who are forcibly drafted into the South Korean army at the start of the Korean War. The film was directed by Kang Jae-yoo, a South Korean film director born on December 23, 1962. After graduating from Chung-Ang University, Kang received his first prize at the Korea Youth Film Festival and Korea Scenario Awards in 1991. Kang's most notable contributions to Korean cinema have been Shiri and Taegukgi. Shiri was the first Hollywood-style big-budget blockbuster to be produced in the new Korean film, immediately after Korea's major economic boom in the late 1990s. The total budget of the film was 8.5 million US dollars, and at the time was the single biggest budget allocated to a South Korean film. Taegukgi was directed 5 years later, rewrote box office records, and was seen by over 10 million people in South Korea alone. Taegukgi was released on February 6, 2004, and spent 12.8 million US dollars on production. The film slowly became one of the biggest successes in the South Korean film history up to that time, attracting almost 11.74 million people to the theater and top talent to its cast. Speaking of cast, the film stars Jang Dong-gun as Lee Jin-tae, a young man who has become the fan of his family and works as a shoeshine to earn for his family. Won Bin, an highly acclaimed actor, stars as Lee Jin-suk, Jin-tae's younger brother who is meant to be the educated son of the family with a bright future. He is a very selective actor who gained popularity after his television series Autumn in My Heart. Alongside this cast is Lee Yoon-ju as Kim Yong-shin, who is Jin-tae's fiancé, and Young-ran Lee, who plays their mother. Understanding the historical background of the setting is very important in order to understanding the true meaning of the movie. This movie is set during the Korean War, more specifically at its outbreak on June 25, 1950. Korea, liberated from Japanese occupation, found itself split at the 38th parallel, with the Soviet Union backing a communist government in the north and the United States supporting a democratic one in the south. On June 25, 1950, North Korea invaded the 30th parallel, which was the line separating the north and the south in an attempt to unify Korea under the communist rule. At the time, a lot of civilians were drafted to the army and forced to fight for their country. The war progressed on as China intervened in the late 1950s when their border was crossed, pushing UN forces back down the 38th parallel. Over the next 3 years of war, there were millions of fatalities and displaced families, especially from the ones who were conscripted. There were many important events that took place, such as the battle at the Busan perimeter, the US amphibious landing at Incheon, and the Battle of Pyongyang. Such major events are included in the movie and depict the conflicts and sacrifices civilians had to make at this time. The storyline of the movie follows the life of brothers Lee Jin-tae and Lee Jin-suk, who have a very strong brotherly bond. Lee Jin-tae owns a shoeshine stand in Seoul to pay for his younger brother Jin-suk's education and works very hard to make an immaculate pair of shoes for him, and is also seen gifting him a silver pen in the beginning of the movie. They live with his fiancée and their mother, who own a noodle shop in the city. The scenes depicted that they were a very happy family that loved each other, with Jin-tae and Jin-suk being extremely playful. When the war breaks loose, Jin-suk is forcefully put on the train to enlist in the army, and Jin-tae follows along in an attempt to return his brother. Not succeeding, they both are then conscripted to the army and are assigned to the 1st Infantry Division. Jin-tae is determined to do anything it takes to be able to send his brother home, and so strikes a deal with the commander. If he goes up the rank and wins the Military Medal Award, his brother would be sent home. Jin-tae therefore puts himself in the front of the next few battles and in very dangerous situations in order to rise up the ranks, much to his brother's discomfort. Jin-suk keeps trying to convince his brother to not volunteer for such tasks to risk his life, but Jin-tae becomes obsessed with the battle of combat after each battle. Jin-tae continues to volunteer for various plans and slowly gains the respect of his commander. His heroism during the urban battle of Pyongyang finally results in Jin-tae's nomination for the medal. But back in Seoul, Young-shin, his fiancée, is suspected of joining the Communist Party, during the communist occupation and is then arrested by the South Korean militia. The brothers try very hard to stop them, but unfortunately, Young Shin gets shot and Jin Suk is thrown in a detention center. The security commander then orders the prison set afire with the prisoners inside, and Jin Tae believes that Jin Suk dies in the fire in the prison. Believing that his fiancée and his brother died on the same day was the tipping point for Jin Tae, who then defects to the North Koreans and leads a unit there called the Flag Unit. Meanwhile, Jin Suk is actually alive and was rescued by a military hospital. After learning about his brother, he rejoins the army and goes to the 38th parallel to reunite with him. After being interrogated by the North Koreans, Jin Suk escapes during a head-to-head battle in an attempt to find the Flag Unit. After battling through, the Flag Unit arrives with Jin Tae at its head. Jin Tae is not able to recognize his brother as a result of the trauma he has suffered through the war, making him emotionless and ruthless. He attempts to kill his brother, but finally recognizes him and shares the silver pen to Jin Suk once again. Jin Tae then sacrifices his life to save his brother and is shot down multiple times while his brother escapes, promising him that he will reunite with him in the future. The movie ends in the present, where we see old Jin Suk at the excavation site looking at the bones of his dead brother, and then finds the silver pen that bonded them once. I personally learned a lot from the movie about the history of Korean War and its effect on the families at the time. I learned that a lot of young men above the age of 18 were forcibly conscripted and had to leave their families behind. The movie also showed me the atrocities and the violence that went on in the war through the dark and horrific visual images and fight scenes, including death. I think what stood out to me about the movie was the way Kang Jae-gyu used a story of brotherhood to convey the emotions of a normal family that experienced the war. The bond between Jin Tae and Jin Suk was so strong that Jin Tae would do anything to save his brother. This fear of losing his brother channeled into a dangerous emotion, where Jin Tae cared about nothing and no one else. This was a powerful storyline that showed how the intensity of war can change a person's character and make them forget who they are, so much so that Jin Suk started fearing his own brother. In the end, when Jin Tae attacked Jin Suk, it came out of a place of hatred towards the South after everything he had been through, and that anger clouded his ability to even recognize his brother. I additionally also enjoyed Jin Suk's character a lot. In the midst of war, where everyone is turning against each other, he was focused on the value of human life, regardless of which side they were on. This was evident when he reunited with Young Suk, their friend from Seoul, who was forcibly drafted to the north. Jin Suk cared for him and convinced Jin Tae to let him go, despite him being on the opposite side. Jin Suk's character showed us that there was no winner in the war, and no side was the better side, as it all came down to losing innocent human lives in the end. While the movie did end tragically, the symbols used throughout the movie, such as the silver pen and the pair of shoes Jin Tae made, showcased the strong brotherly relationship they had that even war could not break. This was a very well made movie that made the audience very emotional while also being informative and representative of the dark time Korea went through, and I would recommend everyone to watch it as well. Thank you.